Okay, people, I finally watched The Exorcist Believer. And yes, it is as bad as they say it is. The Exorcist Believer is a 2023 horror movie that is a sequel to the 1973 horror film The Exorcist, which was a great film, beautifully shot, great acting, and had some real psychological horror. Now, The Exorcist Believer is pretty much all shown in the trailers. So I will be giving away part of the movie, but honestly, the trailers gave away the whole plot. So let's just go on. First, I will say I tried to separate Believer from the original Exorcist because The Exorcist is probably my favorite horror film of all time, and I know nothing's going to top it. I still tried to separate this film from The Exorcist. However, having said that, the film is just trying to get people in who love The Exorcist by bringing in some of the actors and pretty much the same plot point, a lot of callbacks and nostalgia, while simultaneously spitting in the face of the fans. I'll explain that in a little bit. So let's talk about the cast. It revolves around a father, Victor, and his daughter, Angela. Angela has a friend named Catherine, and really she and her family don't matter because they really don't comment or talk too much about her family. So this is going to be all about Victor and Angela. Victor's wife was pregnant with his daughter Angela 13 years ago when
there was a firefight!
No, when there was an earthquake and the building collapsed that the mother was in. We go later to the hospital and the doctors say, hey, we can only save your wife or your child. Which one is it? Well, we skip ahead and see that he chose his daughter. Now, Angela and Catherine are two young girls, and they decide to go play out in the woods and, talk to spirits and ghosts and possibly demons, little girl stuff. And they end up missing for 3 days in the woods. The girls don't remember anything that happened. They thought they were gone for a few hours, not days, and they are a little worse for wear. Their feet are burnt, it seems, and so the doctors are afraid they were assaulted. They bring out the kit, they test them, which is obviously reminiscent of Regan going through all these tests in the original Exorcist. However, her tests were much longer and in more of a span of time, so these girls have to go through some testing, which is unfortunate, unsettling, but it's still not as much as what Regan went through, I'm just saying. But obviously, I feel like it was done as, again, a callback to Regan in the original Exorcist. In the beginning, the only scare that I actually got, not scare, an unsettling feeling, is when Victor is brushing his teeth, the lights are flicking on and off, and his daughter is standing there.
Can I use the bathroom?
What'd you say?
I didn't say nothing.
Thought I heard you say something.
That's where the scares stop. They try to do a jump scare later.
What were you and Catherine doing out there in those woods?
I wanted to talk to Mom. Sometimes I hear her voice. You just start speaking what the Spirit says to you.
What does the Spirit say to you?
The father is out of ideas. He has this neighbor, Anne, who's also a nurse, and she's trying to convince him, your daughter's possessed. How do I know this? Well, she knew because she worked with her at the hospital when the girl's in the hospital. She knew that Anne was once a nun who didn't really take her vow of chastity too well, got pregnant, and got rid of it. The little girl knew her nun name because they give themselves new names. Okay, so we have her, and then along the lines we get different people who maybe are supposed to represent different religions. I don't know, and I really don't care because it just kind of came and went. I mean, they were there, but you kind of forget about them after a while, and again, I'll explain that later. So what does Victor do? Well, Victor, instead of maybe, if he actually believed his daughter was possessed by the devil, instead of actually researching this with some biblical scholars or people who actually, perform exorcisms, he goes to this elderly woman who, mind you, in the first Exorcist, she was a famous actress. Apparently, this is Chris MacNeil, played by Ellen Burstyn. Chris MacNeil, even though at the end of The Exorcist in 1973, she made it clear that I want to go on and have a normal life with my daughter. What does she do instead? She decides to write a tell-all book about how her daughter was possessed by the devil. And so this drives Regan to kind of distance herself from her mother. She won't even tell her where she's staying. I don't know why. I guess she doesn't want her mother to dox her. I don't know. She just wants to distance from her mother because maybe she felt a little betrayed. Understandable. So we see some pictures of Regan, played by Linda Blair. And one thing that Chris MacNeil said to Victor, which made me totally hate the movie from this point out. Chris said, the reason I wasn't allowed in the room while they exorcised my daughter, two male priests, of course, Damien Karras and Father Merrim, The reason I wasn't allowed in that room, because I wasn't part of the patriarchy. Oh my God, woman, these men sacrificed their lives for your daughter, who was a female. You weren't allowed up there because it was unsafe for you and you can be possessed just like Father Karras became possessed. That came out of nowhere. For all the callbacks and all the references to the first film, they almost literally spat in our faces as fans and on the two characters who were, yes, they were heroes because they saved your daughter. They literally died for your daughter. I don't understand why they would constantly do so many things in this film to reference The Exorcist from '73 when it feels like they don't even care about the movie. Because if you had watched the movie, you would see the real reason your ass wasn't allowed in there, because people can be manipulated. Oh my God. So at this point, I'm like, you know what? I want to shut off the film. I don't even want to watch it anymore because this is dumb. But I did. I watched it for you so I could give you my opinion on it. Chris and Victor finally go to Catherine's house and her family, and it's just a mess in that house. And Chris decides, you know what? I'm going to go see this little girl on my own. I'm going to go in the little girl's room who's obviously possessed. Now, mind you, Chris never said that she was an expert on exorcism, as in she never performed one because she's not a priest, right? She has no affiliation. Why would the devil care about you, lady? You're just a old famous actress. And this is the scene we see in all the trailers where she goes, "Mother." I'm like, okay, so obviously she's trying to pretend she's Reagan. Actually, Pazuzu was actually controlling. It was all just... you know what? This movie just gives me a headache. It just makes me so mad. As someone who loves horror films and absolutely loves The Exorcist, this movie just made me mad. Even trying to separate it from The Exorcist, it kept getting thrown in my face, and it just made me so angry. So they get in a little spat. She tries to do, the whole exorcist thing on her own. This is probably why you weren't allowed in the room, Chris, is because the little girl grabs a crucifix and blinds you. She shoves the crucifix in her eyes, and I'm assuming she's blind, because if you get something shoved in your eye, there's a good chance that you're not going to be able to see anymore. Okay, so now Chris is in the hospital. So she's kind of null and void at this point, which she wasn't really necessary anyway, other than the fact they wanted to bring in someone to say, hey, look, it's just like the first movie. Look, we got the actress who played the mom.
Nostalgia.
So I'm going to skip ahead a lot. Basically, in this scene, they have the little girls tied up in the room. Their heart rates are in sync. We have several different people in this room, and they're all going to perform the exorcism themselves. By the way, you might be wondering, well, where the hell is this exorcist? Well, we have Father Maddox, who basically said, I wasn't given permission to do this, so yon. And we get maybe 15 seconds, if not more. I don't know. I think my brain possibly just tried to erase this movie as much as possible, and I ain't going back to watch it again. So while they're all trying to exorcise these girls in their own way, finally, we do have an exorcist. Father Maddox comes in and he starts doing his exorcism thing, We do get a head spin. Father Maddox is killed because they slowly twist his head around. Now, if they did it really quick, it might have been a little more startling and a little more reminiscent of the first one, but no, it was done so slow, you're kind of like, okay, they're spinning his head around. We know what they're doing. We've seen this already. And then the girls say, you gotta choose one of us. One of us dies. One of us survives. So again, we already have a dead priest on the ground. Several people, trying to pretend that they're the exorcist. And the father runs in and says, you know what? I choose my daughter, Catherine. Well, it turns out Catherine's the one who dies and Angela survives. Oh, and the cops show up. And I want to know how no one was arrested. I want to know why no one is in prison at this point, because the cops show up. 2 dead people. We have a dead priest and a dead little girl, and another one who's just kind of mutilated from all the things she did to herself. Several people in this room. How did they get out of this? What happened here for the cops and the authorities to say, you know what? This must have really been a real devil possession here, because look at these girls. Okay, well, I guess no one killed them. I guess no one killed this priest. All right, y'all free to go. Oh, by the way, during this whole exorcism thing, Chris MacNeil, the mother from the first one, she's in the hospital, these bandages on her eyes because, again, she's been blinded. And this scene must have been really easy for her to do, because all she had to do was just pretty much lay there, maybe move her head and hands around a little bit, because she can't actually be at the exorcism because she's blind and already been, attacked. And so while we were doing this exorcism thing, we'll sometimes cut back to Chris. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about her. And they'll cut back to this other woman who's in the room. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about her, that she's there. There are people in this movie I don't even remember until they show them again. Like, that's how unimportant they are. All right, so Catherine's dead, Angela's alive, and at the end, we see a blind Chris MacNeil sitting in her bed. Someone walks in and holds Chris's hand, and oh, it's Reagan. So she came to take care of her blind mother. I mean, this is literally the movie, people. This is it. Everything you've seen in the trailer, that's the film. There is no scary parts in my mind, except for maybe a couple, and that's just realistic stuff, like a kid playing with a light switch and being weird. It's long, drawn out, and very boring to me. I hope you liked it. I personally was very unentertained, but I hope it entertained you. And you know, if I'm missing any really important things to talk about, please let me know in the comments. If you want to watch a good exorcism movie, watch The Exorcist and watch The Exorcist 3. Skip 2 entirely. It's a horrible movie. And then we have the prequels that are the same movie but different due to production issues. And The Possession, which is a really fun movie, really great, starring Jeffrey D. Morgan, or you may know him best as Negan. And there's also The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So many better movies than The Exorcist Believer. So watch those instead of this one. I'm sorry. If you enjoyed the film, I'm happy for you. Please leave your comments in the comment section so you can tell us why you liked it so much. And like I said, I try to keep this movie separate from The Exorcist 1973, but the film would just not allow it. They kept throwing it in my face. So believe it or not, we got 2 more films coming up after this. So they were trying to do a trilogy. Don't ask me why. If you enjoyed this video, you know, check out my other videos. I'm sure I have something that you like. And subscribe to my channel so you can see any new uploads. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a good day. Bye.
What did you say, little girl?
Your mama so soft and smell.
Please, Father, let me help you.
Oh,